Hello and welcome to The Total Artist. This is a year-long experiment that really tries to tap into how we can live as creatively as possible, animating our artistic lives with as much novelty and curiosity and possibility as we can, and bringing that same spirit of creativity into everyday living. That's why we're here. That's why I'm here, because this is an adventure for me to see where are the places where I can bring more openness or new tools or, I don't know, just more color into living. Our first month focuses on writing. For the 3 years I've been trying to get this program off the ground, we've started here every time. There's a good reason for this. Firstly, because it's my core practice. I'm a teacher of writing, and writing is really at the core of my own professional and creative practice. So that feels like a really natural place to start for me. I also think it's a beautiful place to start because language is, to my mind, the most powerful tool we have to capture and communicate the complexity of our ideas, our feelings, and our lived experience. There are things that go beyond words, but words are the closest we can get most of the time to being able to record those ideas and share them with others. To that end, I would really encourage you, if you are thinking about joining me on this journey, even if you want to just dip in and out of it, to make a place for yourself that you have for reflection, whether that's a journal or a blog or voice notes, photos you take on your camera, something in your notes app, just a place where you can capture what you're discovering, what's happening, if you're changing, if you're having new thoughts or questions. If we don't have a place to collect these things, it's very easy for them to just slip away. So it's a good habit for life, creative life especially, but particularly important with something like this so that we can see where we came from when we're looking at where we're at now. We're going to be considering writing from 2 different angles. We're going to be looking at not the subject matter of fiction or nonfiction. This is the way you see bookstores organized. But I think the content is less important for something like this than the way that we're using language as a tool. So we're going to be looking at prose and then poetry, tapping into the qualities of clarity and mystery. These are the 2 things that you want to be holding and weaving together in the most profound writing. And those qualities are really important to a lot of art, good art in any discipline. I also think it's important for how we live. Where are the places we are pursuing clarity in our lives? Where are the places where we are allowing for mystery and the unknown to step in? These 2 qualities are always in a dance. And by exploring one as fully as possible and then the other as fully as possible, our aim is to tap into the widest range of that spectrum that we can access. So we're going to be starting with prose and clarity. And when I'm using these terms, I'm talking about prose as language that comes in sentences, language that feels naturalistic, the way we might speak, the way you might write it in organized sentences in a book, versus poetry, which takes a more experimental approach to language. One of the best ways to realize the importance of clarity is to recognize how often we don't say quite what we mean. We soften or we dance around it or cover up in some way. we aren't totally clear with others. And quite often that's because we aren't being totally clear with ourselves. Because I'm a playwright, I spend a lot of time thinking about subtext, which is this thing that is the meaning underneath the words. So if you're saying something, you can use any sentence for this. If you're saying like, you play the piano beautifully, that can mean, I think you play the piano beautifully. You can also say it, oh, you play the piano beautifully. The words are saying one thing, the tone is saying another, or changing the emphasis of the word reveals something totally different. Well, you play the piano beautifully, or you play the piano beautifully. Language is never just the words, and figuring out all the meaning that exists around, within, underneath it is really important. But our task right now is to try to say what we mean as directly and succinctly as possible. So for these next 2 weeks, while the moon is waxing, there is an opportunity to give yourself a little prose project, or consider how prose is operating in your life. And most importantly, to look for, where can I pursue clarity more deeply, more openly, more courageously? This may be in creative work. It might be a short story. It might be a letter you've been wanting to write. It might be a grant application. It might be an artist's biography. Like, writing those can be excruciating. Where can we free ourselves up by allowing clarity, by allowing as much truthfulness as possible to shine through in our writing? And just to say, you don't have to be doing something big and ambitious to be getting the benefit of this. You could set yourself the task of writing one clear sentence every day. It could be on your phone before you go to bed, if that's the time when you have available. Or it could just be watching and noticing in the world around you. When you're reading something, where are you seeing prose that really grabs you? Where are you seeing clarity shining through? What does that look like? Quite often when we're looking for clarity, it can encourage us to be more economical with our language. We can get to the point more quickly. But that may not necessarily be true. You may find that for you, clarity involves giving yourself the freedom to get into all the detail and explain things in as much specificity as possible. The other thing I think is always important to say when talking about clarity and truth-telling is that there is always still room for kindness within that. If you get that internal catch that says, well, I can't say that, or I can't do that, or I can't admit that even to myself, that sometimes comes out of self-protectiveness, sometimes comes out of concern for others, quite often a mixture of the two. If you're having those feelings, they are valid, and you don't necessarily need to just bulldoze through them. You can offer clarity with generosity, with openness, with curiosity, with humility. Those things can exist alongside. And I think that's for me when I find the writing that really connects. So this is our task for this fortnight. You'll be hearing from me again at the full moon with a provocation about mystery. Thank you for being here. Thank you for watching. I remain resolute in my belief that art is always more fun when we make it together.